The rally stretched across 3 city blocks. Banners hung from every lamppost, each one printed with the same slogan in eco-friendly ink: "Save the planet, praise the sun." Vought had spared no expense on the production. Drone cameras circled overhead, like mechanical vultures, their feeds streaming to 17 million devices. The stage itself was a marvel of corporate theater solar panels, arranged in a sunburst pattern, LED screens cycling through images of melting ice caps and smiling children, a podium shaped like a rising sun. The crowd numbered in the thousands. They wore the merchandise, green t-shirts with golden suns, recycled plastic wristbands, hats that said "Solar Saint" in letters designed to look handwritten, authentic grassroots. None of it was. Every piece had been focus grouped, A/B tested, optimized for maximum shareability across platforms. A blonde woman in her 30s stood near the front, phone raised. Her screen showed the stage at an angle calculated to capture both the spectacle and her own face. She was recording a video for her followers. 12,000 of them. She had practiced her lines. "This is history, Sansam," she said into the camera. "Vaught's finally doing something real." Behind her, a man in a Homelander 28 cap muttered to his friend, "Better be worth the wait. Been standing here 2 hours. The friend checked his phone. They're saying Solar Saint is the real deal, like actual power, not just PR. On stage, a 7-member, whose name most people couldn't remember, was finishing a set-piece rescue. A child actor in a harness dangling from a fake building facade. Pyrotechnics. Applause that sounded genuine because the sound engineers had mixed it that way. The member landed, smiled, for the cameras handed the child to a woman in scrubs who definitely wasn't a real paramedic. The MC took the microphone. His voice boomed through speakers powerful enough to shake rib cages. "Ladies and gentlemen, the hero America has been waiting for, the champion of clean energy, the light that will guide us into tomorrow." Backstage, in a corridor lined with monitors and cable runs, Homelander stood with his arms crossed. His smile was fixed in place, the one he wore for cameras and board meetings and moments when he needed to pretend he gave a damn about whatever Vought was selling this week. But his eyes tracked the stage with the focus of a predator watching prey. Sister Sage stood 3 feet to his left, tablet in hand. Her fingers moved across the screen, pulling up feeds, metrics, sentiment analysis in real time. The algorithms were performing exactly as predicted. Engagement was through the roof. Mentions were spiking. The narrative was writing itself. "He's late," Homelander said without moving his lips. "No," Sage replied. Her voice carried the flat certainty of someone reading a schedule. "He's exactly on time. The timing is part of the effect." On her tablet, a temperature reading climbed. 92 degrees Fahrenheit. Unusual for this time of year, but not unheard of. The UV index was higher than forecasted. Someone in logistics had complained about the heat earlier. Sage had noted, it filed, it moved on. The MC was building to the reveal. A hero who doesn't just talk about saving the world. A hero who embodies the very power of nature itself. The crowd noise increased. Anticipation genuine this time, or close enough that the difference didn't matter. Then the light changed. It wasn't dramatic, not at first. Just a shift in quality, a subtle brightening that made people blink without knowing why. The shadows on stage shortened. The air temperature rose 3 degrees in 5 seconds. Escanor walked onto the stage. He was tall, muscular, in a way that suggested function over aesthetics. His hair was a burnt orange that caught the sun like copper wire. He wore no costume, just simple clothing that Vaught's designers had spent 6 weeks perfecting to look effortlessly heroic. But it was his presence that registered first. The way he moved. Not like someone performing for cameras, but like someone who knew exactly what he was and felt no need to prove it. The crowd went silent. Not the manufactured silence of a dramatic pause, but actual confused quiet. Something about him didn't fit the script they'd been trained to expect. The MC thrust the microphone toward him. The teleprompter scrolled its prepared lines. Escanor glanced at the words, then looked away. He stepped past the MC without taking the microphone, walked to the front of the stage, looked out at the thousands of faces, the phones, the cameras, the drones. When he spoke, his voice carried without amplification, clear, measured, uncompromising. "I did not come here to be loved." The MC's smile faltered. In the control booth, a producer started shouting into his headset. The drones adjusted their angles, trying to capture reaction shots, trying to salvage the moment. Escanor continued. "I came to show you what you hide, what you package, what you sell as salvation, while you profit from the rot beneath." The blonde woman in the crowd stopped recording. Her expression shifted from excitement to confusion to something approaching fear. Others near her were pulling out their phones not to celebrate, but to document something going wrong in real time. Backstage, Homelander's smile finally broke. His jaw tightened. His hands, still crossed, began to clench. Sister Sage's eyes never left her tablet. The temperature reading had jumped again, 98 degrees. The UV index was climbing past safe exposure levels. "What is he doing?" Homelander asked, his voice low and dangerous. Sage's fingers paused over the screen. For 3 full seconds, she said nothing. Then, barely above a whisper, "He's not following the script." On stage, the light continued to intensify. Escanor stood motionless at the center, the sun directly overhead now, and the crowd began to understand that something was happening that Vought had not planned for, had not packaged, had not tested. One of the solar panels on the stage began to warp. The heat was affecting the adhesive. A thin line of smoke rose from the seam. Sage looked at the UV reading one more time. Then she looked up at the sky through the monitor feed, showing the overhead drone view. "Today," she said quietly, "the sun is stronger than expected." The feed cut to commercial. The war room sat on the 43rd floor of Vought Tower. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, but the blinds were drawn. The light inside came from screens, 18 of them arranged in a grid that covered the north wall. Each one showed a different metric: engagement rates, sentiment analysis, projected revenue streams, stock price fluctuations updated in real time. 7 people sat around the table. PR directors, brand strategists, a lawyer whose entire job was making sure nothing anyone said could be used against the company later. At the head of the table, Sister Sage reviewed a document on her tablet. She hadn't looked up in 4 minutes. "The merchandise is already in warehouses," a woman in a gray suit said. Her name was on a placard in front of her, but it didn't matter. "We've got distribution deals locked for 48 states. The solar panel tie-in alone is worth $60 million in the first quarter." "Provided he performs," Sage said without raising her eyes. The room went quiet. Someone coughed. Another person shifted in their chair, the leather creaking. "He'll perform," the woman said, but her voice carried less certainty now. "The focus groups loved him. The test footage scored higher than anything we've run since." "Test footage is controlled," Sage interrupted. She finally looked up. Her gaze swept the room with the mechanical precision of someone cataloging weaknesses. The rally wasn't. One of the screens switched to a clip. Escanor on stage. The moment he ignored the teleprompter. The moment he spoke his own words instead of theirs. The clip had already been edited, cut, remixed into 17 different versions across social media. Some praised him. Most were confused. A few were angry. "He deviated from script," Sage said. "That's a problem. It went viral," someone offered. "Viral isn't the same as controlled." Sage set the tablet down. "We need predictability. We need a product that performs the same way every time, regardless of external variables. What we have is a liability pretending to be an asset." The lawyer leaned forward. Can we terminate? Contract has a morality clause, but he hasn't technically violated it. Yet. Sage stood. We don't terminate. We contain. We shape. We make him understand that his role is to be what we tell him to be, not what he thinks he is. She walked to the window, pulled the blinds open 6 inches. Sunlight cut across the table in a harsh line. Schedule a meeting. Homelander will make the parameters clear. 3 floors down in a corridor that smelled like industrial cleaning solution and recycled air. Escanor walked between 2 handlers. They weren't called handlers. Their official title was Talent Liaison. But everyone knew what they were. Shepherds guiding products from one photo opportunity to the next. The woman on his left kept glancing at her phone. You're scheduled for a meet and greet with the Education Initiative kids in 20 minutes. Just smiles, handshakes, maybe sign a poster or 2. Simple. Escanor said nothing. After that, you've got a podcast recording. It's friendly. Pre-screened questions. They'll ask about your powers, your inspiration, what it means to be a hero in today's America. We've got talking points prepared. Still nothing. The man on his right cleared his throat. You should probably review those points. The podcast host has 14 million subscribers. It's good exposure. I don't need exposure, Escanor said. His voice was even neither hostile nor friendly. Simply factual. The handlers exchanged a look. The woman's smile tightened. Everyone needs exposure. That's how this works. You do the appearances, you build the brand. The brand generates revenue, and everyone benefits. I didn't come here for revenue. Then why did you come here? Escanor stopped walking. The handlers took 2 more steps before realizing he wasn't following. They turned back. He stood in the middle of the corridor, hands at his sides, expression unchanged. To show them what they've made without it saying, he said. Before either handler could respond, a door opened 10 feet ahead. Homelander stepped out. He wore his suit cape, the full regalia. His smile was perfectly calibrated. Warm enough to seem genuine, cold enough to warn anyone paying attention. I'll take it from here, Homelander said. The handlers didn't argue. They nodded, stepped back, disappeared around the corner with the practiced efficiency of people who knew when they were dismissed. Homelander walked closer. Not too close. Just enough to establish the space as his. You made quite an impression at the rally. I spoke the truth. You went off script. Homelander's smile didn't change, but something in his eyes did. A flicker. Brief, dangerous. That's not how we do things here. We have a system. It works. People love it. People love us. All you have to do is follow the plan. Your plan requires me to lie. No. Homelander's voice dropped half an octave. Still friendly. Still controlled. But with an edge now like a knife wrapped in velvet. Our plan requires you to be a hero. That means giving people hope. Inspiration. Something to believe in. You think they want truth? They can't handle truth. They want the story, the narrative, the version that makes them feel safe when they go to bed at night. Escanor met his gaze, didn't blink, didn't look away. I am not here to make anyone feel safe. I am here because someone has to stand where the light shows what you hide. Homelander's smile finally cracked. Just for a second. His jaw tightened. His hands relaxed at his sides a moment ago, curled into fists. Then the smile returned wider than before and somehow more terrible for it. You think you're special, Homelander said softly. You think because you've got powers, because you can do things normal people can't, that you're above the system. But you're not. You're a product, just like the rest of us. And products that don't sell get recalled. I don't belong to you. Everyone belongs to someone. Homelander leaned in close enough now that Escanor could see the faint lines around his eyes, the micro-expressions that broke through the manufactured charm. The question is, whether you're smart enough to belong to the winning side or stupid enough to think you can fight alone. For 5 seconds, neither man moved. The corridor lights hummed overhead. Somewhere distant, an elevator dinged. Then Escanor spoke, his voice carrying the same measured certainty it had on stage. I don't fight, I illuminate. And when the light is bright enough, everyone will see what you are. Homelander's smile vanished completely. His eyes began to glow faint red at the edges. The air temperature around them rose 3 degrees. Then he blinked, and the glow faded. The smile returned. He stepped back. Meeting's in 5 minutes, he said. Conference room C. Don't be late. He walked past Escanor, cape sweeping behind him, and disappeared through the door he'd come from. The sound of it closing echoed down the corridor. Escanor remained standing there for another 10 seconds. Then he turned and walked in the opposite direction. In the war room, Sage watched the exchange on one of the security monitors. She'd had 3 cameras on them, multiple angles. She'd recorded every word, every micro-expression, every shift in body language. She replayed Homelander's moment of barely controlled rage. Watched it 3 times. Then she pulled up Escanor's file again. Temperature readings from the rally. UV exposure data. The biometric tracker they'd embedded in his clothing without telling him. The numbers were higher than they should be. Higher than the lab tests had predicted. Higher than anything they documented during the controlled trials. She opened a new file. Titled it Contingency Protocols. Then she started typing. Outside, through the 6 inches of open blinds, the sun continued its arc across the sky. Noon was still 3 hours away. The light in the room grew imperceptibly brighter. 6 months earlier. Sub-level 3. The part of Vought Tower that didn't appear on any public floor plan. The lab stretched 40 feet in every direction. White walls, white floors, white ceiling. Everything designed to reflect light, to measure it, to control it. Banks of UV lamps lined the walls, each one calibrated to produce specific wavelengths. Artificial sunlight, adjustable by season, latitude, time of day. A man stood in the center of the room, smaller than he would become, uncertain. His arms hung at his sides, while technicians in hazmat suits moved around him, adjusting sensors, checking readings on tablets, murmuring into headsets. Subject is stable, one technician reported. Heart rate elevated, but within acceptable parameters. Escanor stared at the lamps. The light was wrong. He could feel it. Flat. Lifeless. Nothing like the sun outside the one he could sense, but not see through 40 stories of concrete and steel. A woman's voice crackled through speakers mounted in the ceiling. Increase output to 30%. The lamps brightened. Escanor's muscles tensed involuntarily. Heat spread across his skin, not painful, but present like standing too close to a fire. The technician stepped back 3 feet. Subject response nominal. Temperature rising, 2 degrees above baseline. Increased to 40%. The light intensified. Escanor's breathing deepened. His posture straightened. Something in his chest expanded, not physically, but in a way he couldn't name. The uncertainty began to burn away. One of the tablets beeped. A technician frowned at the screen. We're seeing unusual energy signatures, higher than predicted. Within tolerance? Yes, but barely. If we go higher, we need to know the ceiling. Increase to 45%. The technician hesitated, then complied. The lamps hummed louder. Escanor's shadow shortened. The heat in his chest grew stronger, and with it came something else. Pride. Certainty. The knowledge that he was more than this room, more than their measurements, more than whatever they were trying to make him. That's enough. A new voice mailed deeper. Bring him back down. The lamps dimmed. Escanor sagged slightly, the sensation draining as quickly as it had built. The uncertainty returned. He looked down at his hands. They were shaking. Good work today, the male voice said through the speakers. We're making real progress. In the observation room behind one-way glass, 3 people stood watching. A doctor with gray hair and glasses, a Vought executive in a suit too expensive to wear in a lab, and Sister Sage, younger than, less certain of herself, but already calculating. He peaked at 45%, the doctor said. That's well within our control range. The kill switch parameters should hold if we ever need them. The executive nodded. And the outdoor testing, not necessary. UV lamps replicate natural sunlight perfectly. We can simulate any condition we need right here. The doctor gestured to the banks of equipment. It's cheaper this way, cleaner, no variables we can't account for. What about permits? Sage asked. If we took him outside for a real-world test, the executive frowned. You'd need permits. Multiple agencies. EPA, probably Homeland Security, given the nature of his abilities. That means paperwork, disclosures, risk of leaks. He shook his head. No. The outdoor testing isn't worth the exposure. Exposure, Sage repeated. She watched Escanor through the glass. He was sitting now, head in his hands, while technicians removed sensors from his skin. That's the concern. Not scientific accuracy. Not whether our models are correct. Just whether anyone finds out what we're doing. That's how this works, the executive said flatly. We control the narrative. We control the product. We control everything except what we let the public see. He checked his watch. I have a board meeting. Send me the final report. He left. The doctor began reviewing data on his tablet. Sage remained at the glass, watching Escanor. Even diminished, even uncertain, there was something about him that resisted their framework. Something that didn't quite fit. She pulled out her phone, made a note. Subject may require additional conditioning before public deployment. Then she left the observation room. Behind her, the lamps continued their programmed cycle, simulating dawn-noon sunset. Perfect, controlled. Nothing like the real thing. Present day. Vought Tower Medical Facility. Noon minus 45 minutes. Escanor sat on an examination table, while a different technician, also in a hazmat suit, attached a new monitoring device to his forearm. The previous one had stopped working during the rally. Overheated according to the initial report. They were trying a newer model now, reinforced casing higher temperature tolerance. This might pinch, the technician said. It didn't. Escanor barely felt the needle slide into his vein. His mind was elsewhere, on the sun outside, on the way his body responded to it now compared to 6 months ago. The UV lamps had been a pale imitation. This was real. This was truth. The technician stepped back, checked her tablet. Biometrics are reading normally. You're cleared for afternoon appearances. I'm not going to any appearances. She looked up. I'm sorry. I said I'm not going. Escanor stood. The monitoring device beeped once, a sharp tone. The technician glanced at it, frowned. Your temperature just spiked. Are you feeling all right? I feel fine. I'm reading 99.4. That's elevated for you. She tapped the screen. I should get a doctor. The door opened. Sister Sage entered, tablet in hand. She looked at the technician. Leave. The technician opened her mouth to protest, then thought better of it. She set the tablet on the counter and walked out quickly. Sage closed the door. You're causing problems. I'm being what I am. You're being uncooperative. There's a difference. She pulled up a file on her tablet, turned it so he could see. Readouts, charts, numbers he didn't fully understand, but recognized as measurements of himself. Your power output has increased 17% since we brought you out of testing. Your baseline temperature is up. Your response to UV exposure is beyond what our models predicted. Your models were built in a basement with artificial lights. Yes, Sage didn't deny it. Because outdoor testing would have required permits. Permits mean paperwork. Paperwork means other agencies asking questions. Questions mean exposure we couldn't control. She set the tablet down. So we did what was cost-effective and kept you in conditions we could manage. You mean conditions where I was weak enough to manipulate? Yes. Again, no denial. That was the point. A product we can't control isn't a product. It's a liability. She pulled up another screen, a schematic of something embedded in his clothing, small, mechanical. We installed a kill switch, biochemical compound triggered remotely. If you ever became too dangerous, we could shut you down in under 30 seconds. Escanor looked at the schematic. Past tense. Sage zoomed in on a section of the diagram. The compound is temperature sensitive. It was tested in laboratory conditions, where the highest heat you ever generated was from 45% UV exposure. But out there, she gestured toward the window. You're exceeding that. Consistently. The kill switch degraded after your first outdoor rally. It's inert now. A piece of expensive garbage sewn into your jacket. She closed the file. So now we have a problem. You're more powerful than anticipated. You refuse to follow protocol. And we have no way to stop you if you decide to become an actual threat. Escanor met her gaze. I'm not a threat to anyone who isn't lying. Everyone lies, Sage said. That's civilization. That's how society functions. People agree to pretend things are better than they are, so they can sleep at night. You want to burn that away? Show them the truth. You'll destroy more than you save. Perhaps what needs destroying shouldn't have been built. For a moment, Sage said nothing. Then she picked up her tablet. The next event is scheduled for 11:30, outdoor venue. Full sun exposure. Homelander will be there. So will cameras reporters and approximately 5,000 civilians. She walked to the door, paused. If you're planning to make a statement, that's your stage. But understand something. Whatever you do, we'll spin it. That's what we do. That's what we're good at. She left. Escanor sat back down on the examination table. Through the window, high and narrow, he could see a slice of sky. Clear. Cloudless. The sun climbing toward its apex. He pulled the monitoring device from his arm. The needle slid out cleanly. No blood. The device beeped once frantically, then went silent. He dropped it in the trash. 20 stories above in her office, Sage reviewed the biometric data one final time. The temperature curve was climbing. Not gradually, exponentially. The pattern matched nothing in their database because they'd never tested him under these conditions. Real sun, real heat, no control. She opened the contingency file she'd started earlier, added a new line. Subject has exceeded all projected parameters. Kill switch failed. Recommend immediate deployment of secondary containment protocol. She sent the file to 3 people. The board, the head of security, Homelander. Then she pulled up the weather forecast. High of 96 degrees, UV index critical. Noon in 23 minutes. She set an alarm on her phone. Outside, the light continued to build. Inside the tower, in elevators and stairwells and corridors, people went about their work unaware that the carefully controlled environment they'd built was about to encounter something that refused to be contained. Something that grew stronger the more honestly it was seen. The safe house smelled like mold and old cigarettes. 3 blocks from Vought Tower, 4th floor walk-up, the kind of place landlords forgot existed until someone stopped paying rent. Butcher sat on a couch that had seen better decades remote in one hand, beer in the other. The television showed the rally footage for the 8th time that hour. Different channel. Same clip. Rewind it, MM said from the kitchen. He was making coffee because someone had to maintain standards even when the world was circling the drain. Butcher hit rewind. The footage played again. Escanor walking onto stage. The light changing. The moment he went off script. He's different, Huey said. He stood near the window, half watching the screen, half watching the street below. I mean, he's not doing the usual soup thing. No posing, No fake smile. "They're all fake," called back. "Some just hide it better." Butcher paused the footage on Escanor's face, studied it. The expression wasn't uncertain or scared or performative. It was something else. Conviction. The kind that came from knowing exactly what you were and giving precisely 0 fucks about what anyone else thought. "He embarrassed Homelander," Butcher said. "On camera. That's not nothing." "That's a death sentence," replied, walking in with his coffee. "You don't show up the Golden Boy and live to talk about it, unless you're too valuable to kill." Butcher took a drink. "Or too dangerous." Huey turned from the window. "You want to recruit him? I want to use him." Butcher didn't soften it. "Difference matters. He's still a soup. He's a soup who just told Vought to fuck off in front of 17 million people. That makes him either stupid or useful, maybe both." Butcher stood, grabbed his coat from the back of the couch. "I'm going to find out which." Set his coffee down carefully. "And if he says no, then we're no worse off than we are now." Butcher headed for the door. "But if he says yes, we might have our first real shot at putting Homelander in the ground." Huey stepped away from the window. "I'm coming with you." "No, you're not." "Yes, I am." Huey's voice carried an edge it hadn't a year ago. "Because someone needs to talk to him like a person instead of a weapon." Butcher looked at him for 3 seconds, then shrugged. "Your funeral. Vought Tower Cooling Facility Sublevel 6. The room was 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Escanor sat on a metal bench bolted to the wall, arms resting on his knees. They'd brought him here after he removed the monitoring device. Said his core temperature was too elevated. Said he needed to stabilize before his next appearance. He'd walked in voluntarily. Not because he believed them. Because he was curious how they'd react to someone who didn't resist their obvious manipulations. 2 guards stood outside the door. Not soups. Regular security. They had tasers and protocol, and the false confidence that came from believing the room would do their job for them. Escanor closed his eyes. Even here insulated and artificial, he could feel the sun outside. Its position, its strength. Noon was close. Very close. The cold air didn't bother him. His body was adjusting, compensating, waiting for the moment when the sun reached its peak and the lie of this room would become obvious. Footsteps in the corridor, multiple sets. The guards straightened, adjusted their posture. The door opened. Butcher walked in first, hands in his coat pockets expression, somewhere between casual and hostile. Huey followed, looking uncomfortable in a way that suggested this wasn't his idea. But he was committed anyway. The guards moved to intercept. Butcher pulled out a Vought contractor badge, the kind that cost $3 grand on the black market and another grand to keep current. Talent liaison. Scheduled consultation. One guard checked his tablet, frowned. "I don't have any." "Check again." The guard did. His frown deepened. Then his expression went blank, in the way that meant someone higher up had just updated the system remotely. "You're cleared. 15 minutes." Butcher walked past him into the cooling room. Huey followed. The door closed behind them. Escanor opened his eyes, looked at the 2 men, said nothing. "Hell of a show you put on," Butcher said. "Really fucked up their whole narrative." "That was not a show." "No, I don't reckon it was." Butcher pulled his hands from his pockets, crossed his arms. "Which is why we're here. Because you just made yourself a very large target. And Vought doesn't let targets walk around for long. I can handle Vought. Can you?" Butcher gestured vaguely at the room. "Because right now, you're sitting in a freezer because they told you to. That doesn't look like handling anything. I'm here because I choose to be. For now." Butcher took a step closer. "But what happens when they decide you're more trouble than you're worth? What happens when Homelander gets tired of being upstaged? Do you think they'll just let you walk away?" Escanor stood. The movement was unhurried, but Butcher's hand moved instinctively toward his coat where something heavy sat in an inside pocket. Huey tensed. I don't need permission to leave, Escanor said. Maybe not. But you need a reason. Butcher lowered his hand. Right now you're angry. You're defiant. Good. Channel that. Help us take down the bastard who's been playing God for the last decade. Homelander, him Vought the whole corrupt system. You want to shine a light on what they're hiding, we can help with that. But it takes more than standing on a stage, saying pretty words. It takes action. It takes murder, Escanor finished. His voice remained level. You want me to kill him? Butcher didn't hesitate. Yes. Huey stepped forward. We're not asking you to murder anyone. We're asking you to help stop someone who's killed hundreds of people and will kill hundreds more if someone doesn't. I don't kill innocents. Escanor interrupted. I don't execute for spectacle. And I don't take orders from people who see me as a weapon instead of a person. I see you exactly as you are, Butcher said flatly. A soup who's got powers and a grudge. That's useful. I'm not going to dress it up like we're mates or pretend this is about friendship. You help us, we help you. That's the deal. And if I refuse, Butcher shrugged. Then Vought handles you their way, which will be messy. Public. They'll spin it so you're the villain, and Homelander's the hero who saved America from a dangerous extremist. That's their playbook. I've seen it work 100 times. Escanor walked to the door. The guards outside shifted nervously as he approached. He didn't open it. Just stood there, one hand resting on the metal. I will do what is right, he said without turning around. Not what is convenient. Not what serves your agenda. If that means standing alone, then I stand alone, Huey spoke up. You don't have to be alone. That's what we're trying to... You want a soldier? Escanor said. I am not that. He opened the door. The guard stepped back. Escanor walked out into the corridor, and the temperature differential hit him like a wall of heat. Not uncomfortable. Clarifying. The cold room had been trying to suppress something. Out here, even in Vaught's controlled environment, he could feel the sun pulling him toward what he was meant to be. In the cooling room, Butcher stared at the open door. Well, that went fucking brilliantly. He's not wrong, Huey said quietly. We were treating him like a tool. He is a tool. Everyone's a tool. Question is whether you're useful or useless. Butcher headed for the door. Come on, we need to work the angles before Vought does. They left. The guards closed the door behind them. One pulled out his radio. Subjects have departed. Do we maintain surveillance on the asset? The response came through immediately. Sister Sage's voice clipped and precise. Yes. And notify media relations. We're moving up the timeline. Prepare the narrative package for release. The guard acknowledged and switched channels. Within 30 seconds, 3 different departments were being activated. PR. Security. The Seven's handler. The machine was moving. 4 floors up in a conference room with windows overlooking the city, a meeting was wrapping up. Marketing executives. Sponsors. People whose job was turning soups into revenue streams. They were reviewing the Solar Saint merchandise projections when the alert came through. Sister Sage's face appeared on the main screen. We have a situation. The asset has been contacted by known domestic terrorists. His cooperation is uncertain. We're implementing Protocol 7. One of the executives leaned forward. What's Protocol 7? Public recontextualization, Sage said. We label him a threat before he becomes one. News outlets receive the prepared statement in 6 minutes. Social media accounts start pushing the narrative in 8. By tonight, Solar Saint goes from hero to dangerous radical. Can we do that? After the rally response was so positive, we don't need everyone to believe it. We just need enough people confused that when we take action, half the country thinks it was justified. Sage's expression didn't change. This is what we do. This is what we're good at. The screen went dark. On the street below, Escanor walked out through Vought Tower's main entrance. No handlers, no security escort. Just him and the sun directly overhead. Rectly. Noon had arrived. He tilted his face upward, felt the heat, felt the power building in his chest, in his blood, in every cell that remembered what it was like to burn without reservation. Behind him, through windows and walls and layers of corporate machinery, the wheels were turning. Statements being drafted, angles being worked, stories being written. But out here, under the actual sun, instead of artificial approximations, Escanor smiled. Let them try. The motel sat on the edge of the city where zoning laws went to die. Neon sign missing half its letters. Parking lot cracked like a dried riverbed. The kind of place that rented by the hour and didn't ask questions as long as cash came first. Room 12. Huey had paid for it 3 hours ago using money from an account that didn't exist under his real name. had swept it for bugs. Found 2, crushed them, swept again, clean. Escanor sat on the edge of the bed, shoulders hunched, hands clasped between his knees. He looked smaller. Not physically diminished yet, but getting there. The sun had set 40 minutes ago, and with it went the certainty that had carried him through the day. Butcher leaned against the bathroom doorframe, arms crossed. He'd been watching Escanor for 10 minutes without saying a word, just observing, cataloging the changes, the way confidence drained like water from a cracked basin. "This happens every night?" Butcher finally asked. Escanor nodded but didn't look up. "How long's it last?" "Until dawn." Butcher pushed off the doorframe, walked to the window, pulled the curtain aside an inch. The street outside was empty, except for a homeless man pushing a shopping cart. No Vought vehicles. No surveillance that he could spot. Didn't mean they weren't out there. "Can you fight like this?" "No." "Can you run?" "Yes." Escanor's voice was quiet, uncertain in a way it hadn't been 12 hours ago. "I'm not helpless. Just less. Less is how people die." Butcher let the curtain fall. "We can't protect you if you're a liability." "Then don't." "Wasn't planning to." Butcher grabbed his coat. "But Huey's got a bleeding heart, so he'll probably try anyway. Don't make him regret it." He headed for the door, paused with his hand on the knob. "You really meant what you said about not killing innocents?" "Yes." "What about guilty ones?" Escanor finally looked up. His eyes, so certain in daylight now, carried doubt. "I don't know," Butcher grunted. "At least you're honest." He opened the door. "Huey'll be back with food. Try not to die before then." He left. The door clicked shut. The lock engaged automatically, and Escanor was alone with the water-stained ceiling and the smell of old smoke and the weight of his own weakness pressing down like a physical thing. He lay back on the bed, stared at the ceiling, counted the stains. 17, 18 if the one near the corner was separate and not connected to the larger patch. Someone knocked. 3 taps. Pause. 2 more. The pattern Huey had established. Escanor stood open the door. Huey stepped in carrying a plastic bag that smelled like grease and salt. Fast food. The kind that came wrapped in paper and tasted like cardboard, but filled the stomach. "Got you a burger?" Huey said, setting the bag on the small table near the window. "Wasn't sure what you liked, so I just got the basic. Fries, too, and water." He pulled out a bottle, set it next to the bag. "Thank you." Huey sat in the chair. Escanor remained standing, looking at the food, but not moving toward it. "You should eat," Huey said. "I'm not hungry." "You will be. Midnight hits, your metabolism's gonna catch up." Huey unwrapped his own burger, took a bite. Chewed. Swallowed. "I looked up your powers. Online, I mean, after the rally. People are already making wikis, analyzing you like you're a character in a comic. What did they say? That you're probably solar-powered." That nighttime is when you're vulnerable. That if Homelander wanted to kill you, he'd do it after dark. Huey took another bite. They're not wrong, are they? Escanor sat down on the bed. No. So why'd you walk out? Why not stay in the tower, where at least there's security? Their security isn't for my protection. It's for theirs. Escanor looked at his hands. In daylight, they'd been steady. Now they trembled slightly. I won't be contained, even if it means being vulnerable. Huey set his burger down. You know, most people would take the safe option. Stay inside, play the game, live to fight another day. I'm not most people. Yeah, I'm starting to get that. Huey leaned back in the chair. Can I ask you something? Why do you care about the truth about exposing Vought, all of it? You're powerful. You could just leave. Go somewhere they can't touch you. Escanor was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice carrying a sadness that daylight burned away. Because I know what it's like to be weak, to be afraid, to feel like the world is controlled by people who see you as nothing. He looked up at Huey. When the sun is high, I forget that feeling. But every night it comes back. And every night I remember that most people live their entire lives feeling what I only feel in darkness. So you're doing this for them. I'm doing this because someone has to. Another knock. Different pattern. Huey tensed hand moving toward his jacket where he kept a knife that wouldn't do much against a soup, but made him feel slightly less helpless. It's me, a woman's voice said. Open up. Huey relaxed slightly, stood, opened the door. Starlight stepped in quickly, hood up, sunglasses on despite the darkness. She pulled them off once the door was closed. Looked at Escanor. Her expression shifted surprise, then something like recognition. You look different, she said. It's night. Yeah, I can see that. She turned to Huey. We need to talk, all of us. Huey gestured to the chair he'd been sitting in. Starlight shook her head. I'm not staying long. Vaught's tracking my phone. I've got maybe 10 minutes before they notice the gap in my location data. She pulled out her phone, showed them a screenshot. A news article. The headline read, Solar Saint or Solar Menace. Beneath it a photo of Escanor at the rally, but the angle was wrong, the lighting adjusted to make him look threatening. The article text was visible in the preview sources inside Vought, confirmed concerns about the new hero's instability. They're going after you, Starlight said. Full media blitz. Every outlet they control, which is most of them. By tomorrow morning, half the country will think you're dangerous. I am dangerous, Escanor said. Not the way they're going to make it look. Starlight pulled up another image. A memo. Internal Vought communications. She'd screenshotted it too, though doing so was probably a termination-level offense. They're planning something big. Public event, lots of cameras. They're going to force a confrontation and make sure you look like the aggressor. When? Tomorrow, 11:30. Some charity thing downtown. She put her phone away. They want Homelander to be the one who stops you. Maximum PR value. Huey stood. Can you stop it, warn someone? Who the media's owned. The government's compromised. Anyone I tell will either ignore it or use it against us. Starlight looked at Escanor again. Your only option is to not show up. Disappear. Stay hidden until this blows over. It won't blow over, Escanor said. They'll find me. And when they do, the confrontation will happen anyway. Just on their terms in private where no one can see the truth. So what, you're just gonna walk into their trap? I'm going to show people what they need to see. Escanor stood through the movement took more effort than it should have. They control the narrative because people let them. Because it's easier to believe the comfortable lie than the difficult truth. But if the truth is bright enough, loud enough, undeniable enough. He trailed off. Starlight's expression hardened. They'll kill you. You get that right. Homelander doesn't lose in public. Ever. If you go up against him, He'll find a way to make it look justified, and you'll end up dead or worse. Maybe. Escanor met her gaze. Even diminished, even uncertain, something in his eyes refused to yield. But I'll be standing in the sun when it happens. Starlight looked like she wanted to argue further. Then she checked her phone. I have to go. They'll notice the gap soon. She headed for the door, stopped. For what it's worth, I hope you're right. I hope the truth matters as much as you think it does. She left. Huey locked the door behind her, turned back to Escanor. You really think you can win? No. Escanor sat back down on the bed. But I think I can make them work for it. And I think enough people will see what happens, that the lie becomes harder to maintain. Outside a television somewhere played the evening news. Through the thin walls, voices. A commercial for Vought Plus. A laugh track. The ordinary sounds of a world that didn't know it was balanced on the edge of something that might change it or might just confirm everything people already feared. Escanor lay back down, stared at the ceiling, counted stains until exhaustion pulled him under. Huey ate his cold fries and kept watch by the window. Dawn was 8 hours away. The war room looked different at 3 in the morning. Screens still glowed, metrics still updated. But the people were fewer sharper, the ones who got called in when normal business hours couldn't contain the crisis. Sister Sage stood at the head of the table. She'd been awake for 19 hours. It didn't show. Her presentation was already loaded, slides arranged in the order that would lead the room to the conclusion she needed them to reach. The rally was a miscalculation, she began. No preamble, no softening. We gave him a platform assuming he'd follow the script. He didn't. Now we have a problem that requires a solution before it becomes a disaster. The head of security, a man whose job was preventing things from reaching the news cycle, leaned forward. We still have options. Private containment. Make it look like an accident. No. Sage pulled up the first slide. Social media analytics. Sentiment tracking. He's already trending. 4 million mentions in the last 18 hours. 72% positive. If he disappears now, questions get asked. Conspiracies form. We lose control of the narrative. So what's the play? Sage advanced to the next slide. A diagram. 3 layers. Public event. Controlled chaos. Narrative pivot. We don't make him disappear. We make him into exactly what people need to fear. She explained it methodically. The event would be public, charitable, impossible to avoid without looking guilty. Families, children, maximum emotional weight. They'd engineer a situation that looked like a rescue scenario, but was designed to fracture under pressure. Then they'd film Escanor's response from every angle that made intervention look like aggression. We're not fabricating violence, Sage clarified. We're contextualizing it. Whatever he does, however he responds, we make sure the cameras capture it in ways that confirm the narrative we've already started building. The PR director, a woman who'd been with Vought for 12 years and had buried worse, nodded slowly. We'd need cooperation from first responders, EMTs, police, already arranged. Sage pulled up another slide, a list of names, departments, people who owed favors or took payments or simply understood which side controlled their careers. Everyone on this list knows their role. The incident happens. They respond. Escanor intervenes. And when the dust settles, the official reports will all say the same thing. That he caused it. That he made it worse. Sage corrected. We don't need to prove he started the fire. We just need people to believe he shouldn't have been near it. One of the board members, attending remotely from a screen on the wall, spoke up. What about the 7 Where's Homelander in this? On standby. When Escanor escalates, Homelander contains the situation. Saves lives. Confirms that the system works when people trust it. Sage closed the presentation. By tomorrow night, Solar Saint goes from controversial to cautionary tale. The room was silent for 5 seconds. Then the security head asked the question they were all thinking. What if it doesn't work? What if people see through it? Sage's expression didn't change. Then we moved to Protocol 8. But we won't need to. People want to believe their heroes are heroic and their threats are threatening. We're just helping them organize the information they already want to accept. She dismissed the meeting. People filed out. Sage remained pulling up the operational timeline on her tablet. Every minute accounted for, every variable mapped, every angle covered, almost every angle. She pulled up the file on Escanor's power curve. The projection still bothered her. The way his output scaled with UV exposure. The lack of an observable ceiling. The kill switch had been their fail-safe, and it was gone. Which meant if something went wrong, if he decided to truly push back, they had no mechanism to stop him beyond overwhelming force. She added a note to the file, recommend secondary suppression assets on standby. Then she sent it to the appropriate people and went back to reviewing the timeline. 6 blocks away in the safe house that smelled like mold and consequences, Butcher was having the same conversation with MM for the 3rd time. "It's a trap," MM said. He was cleaning his gun even though it was already clean. Needed something to do with his hands. "You walk into that event, you're playing their game." "I'm not walking in," Butcher replied. He was looking at building schematics on his laptop. Maps, exits, sightlines. "I'm observing. There's a difference." Observing while carrying what exactly? Butcher didn't answer. He pulled up another file. Vought security patterns. Shift changes. Blind spots. MM set the gun down. "I'm serious. We can't win this one straight. They've got home field advantage media control and the whole goddamn system backing their play. Best we can do is survive." "Surviving isn't winning. It's better than dead." Butcher closed the laptop. "He's going anyway, with or without us. That's his choice. And when Homelander turns him into a smear on the pavement, when Vought spins it so the whole country thinks we backed a terrorist." Butcher grabbed his coat. "We're already on the list. May as well make them work for it." Huey entered from the back room where Escanor was sleeping. Or trying to. The walls were thin enough that voices carried. "He's not a terrorist. Doesn't matter what he is," MM said. "Matters what they make him look like. So we just let them. We pick battles we can win." MM looked at Butcher. "You taught me that." "Yeah, well." Butcher headed for the door. "Sometimes you gotta break your own rules." He left. MM looked at Huey. "You agreeing with this?" "I don't know." Huey sat in the chair Butcher had vacated. "I keep thinking about what he said. About how most people live their whole lives feeling powerless. And then someone comes along who might actually change that. And we're supposed to what? Tell him to stay hidden. Let Vought win. Vought already won." MM started reassembling his gun. "This whole thing, it's just them cleaning up. We're not heroes, Huey. We're roaches. We survive in the cracks. We don't fight them head-on because we lose." "Then what's the point?" MM finished with the gun, set it down, looked at Huey with an expression that was tired and sad and honest. "The point is living long enough to fight tomorrow. That's it. That's all we get." In the back room, Escanor lay on the mattress that smelled like cigarettes and broken promises. Sleep wasn't coming. His mind kept cycling through what Starlight had said. The trap, the cameras, the way Vought would frame everything he did as confirmation of their narrative. He knew they were right. All of them. Butcher, MM, Huey, Starlight. Walking into tomorrow was walking into a situation designed to destroy him, but staying hidden meant Vought controlled the story forever. Meant everyone who'd seen him at the rally, who'd heard him speak truth instead of script, would watch that truth get buried under lies and spin and the comfortable fiction that systems existed to protect them. He sat up. Through the thin curtain, the first gray hints of pre-dawn. Not sunrise yet, but coming. He could feel it. The slow build, the return of certainty. In 3 hours, he'd be strong. In 4, he'd be dangerous. In 5, when the sun reached its peak, he'd be something Vought couldn't ignore or contain or spin away. The question wasn't whether he'd go. The question was whether he'd go alone. He stood, walked to the main room. Huey was asleep in the chair. MM had left. Butcher hadn't come back yet. Escanor found paper and a pen in the kitchen drawer. Wrote 4 words, "I don't need you." Not cruel, just true. This was his choice, his consequences. They'd been dragged into it by proximity and circumstance, but they didn't owe him loyalty or sacrifice or martyrdom. He left the note on the table, walked to the door, unlocked it quietly. Outside, the city was waking up. Delivery trucks, early commuters, people whose days would continue regardless of what happened at 11:30. Escanor walked toward downtown, toward the event location Starlight had mentioned, toward the confrontation that Vought had designed, and he was choosing anyway. The sun broke the horizon behind him. In the war room, an alert triggered. Facial recognition. Street camera. Downtown sector. Sister Sage looked at the notification. Escanor's face. Location timestamp. Direction of travel. She pulled up the event timeline. Cross-referenced his position and trajectory. He was heading directly toward the venue, 4 hours early, alone. She opened a secure channel. Subject is mobile. Repeat, subject is mobile and approaching event location ahead of schedule. Homelander's voice came through. He sounded pleased. He's coming to us. Appears so. Good. A pause. Tell them to move up the timeline. No reason to wait. Sage calculated quickly. Sunrise was recent. Escanor's power curve would still be climbing. If they engaged now, they'd catch him before he reached peak strength. Tactically sound, but something about it bothered her. The way he was walking alone, no backup, no plan, just forward motion towards certain conflict. He knew it was a trap, had to. Which meant either he was suicidal or he believed something they didn't account for. She pulled up the UV forecast again. Clear skies. High of 98 degrees. Peak UV index at 11:47 a.m. She checked the time, 7:13, 4.5 hours until noon. Confirm timeline adjustment, she said into the comm. But keep secondary assets ready. If his output exceeds projections, we may need heavier containment. Understood. The channel closed. Sage looked at the screens. Metrics, projections, variables mapped and controlled and optimized. Except one, the subject himself. Walking toward their carefully constructed trap like it was an invitation he'd chosen to accept. She made a note. Outcome confidence, 87%. Acceptable margins. Then she went back to coordinating the pieces. Outside, the sun continued rising. Inside the system, the machine continued grinding. And somewhere between those two facts, something was about to break. The only question was which side would be standing when it did. The venue was a waterfront plaza designed for corporate photo opportunities. Open space surrounded by barriers that looked decorative but served as crowd control. A stage built for ribbon cuttings and press conferences. Behind it, the river reflected morning light like hammered copper. By 8:30, the event was already operational. White tents distributed across the plaza, banners announcing the Vought Youth Initiative. Tables with volunteer sign-up sheets and merchandise. A bounce house shaped like Homelander's head mouth open so kids could climb through the teeth. Parents arrived early, brought their children, took photos. The morning was warm, heading toward hot, sunscreen and water bottles. Excitement mixed with the Florida vacation energy of people who'd gotten up early for something they'd been told mattered. Escanor watched from 2 blocks away. Rooftop access through a fire escape. He could see the whole operation. The cameras, the news vans, the security checkpoints designed to look casual. The plainclothes agents scattered through the crowd recognizable by the way They didn't quite commit to looking relaxed. The sun climbed higher. He felt it in his chest, strength building, certainty returning. Not at peak yet, but close. Another hour, maybe less. A voice behind him. "Thought you'd be here." He turned. Huey stood at the roof access door, breathing hard from the climb. No butcher. No MM. Just him. "I left a note," Escanor said. "I read it." Huey walked closer, stopped at the edge, looked down at the plaza. "You're wrong, though. You do need someone. Not to fight, just to witness. Because whatever happens down there, Vaught's going to record it their way. Someone needs to record it the real way." He pulled out a phone. Consumer grade, not professional, but equipped with the kind of camera that could stream directly to platforms Vaught didn't control yet. "I'm not asking you to change your mind," Huey continued. "I'm just asking you to let me document the truth. That's all." Escanor looked at him. This young man who'd lost someone to Vaught's machinery and kept choosing to stand near its teeth anyway. "You should leave before it starts." "I will. When you do." Huey checked his phone. "Butcher's nearby. He won't come up here, but he's watching. MM's back at the safe house coordinating with Starlight. We're not leaving you alone." "I told you. I know what you told us." Huey's voice carried an edge it hadn't before. "But here's the thing about working with people instead of treating them like tools. They get to make their own choices too. And we're choosing to back you. Not because you asked, because it's right." Before Escanor could respond, movement below. The 7 arriving. Not all of them, just the ones that mattered for cameras. Homelander, first Cape Perfect smile fixed. Black Noir behind him, silent and ominous. A-Train doing perimeter sweeps at speeds that looked show-off casual. The deep near the water feature because someone in PR thought it was on brand. They positioned themselves around the plaza. Strategic, visible, ready. Sage's voice crackled through an earpiece Homelander wore. Escanor couldn't hear it, but he could see Homelander's posture shift, scan the surroundings, stop, lock onto the rooftop where Escanor stood. Their eyes met across 200 yards. Homelander's smile widened. He raised one hand, a small wave, almost friendly. Then his eyes started glowing red. "That's our cue," Huey said. "I'm going down, getting closer. You do what you're going to do." He left through the roof access. Footsteps echoing down the stairwell. Escanor looked at the sun. 9:15. Still climbing, still building. He stepped off the roof. Not flying, just falling. 3 stories. Landed in an alley that smelled like old garbage and humidity. The impact cracked the concrete under his feet. Didn't hurt? The sun wouldn't let it hurt. He walked toward the plaza. At the security checkpoint, volunteers in yellow vests tried to stop him. "Sir, you need to check in. We have a system." He walked past them, through the barriers, onto the plaza proper. Parents noticed first. Pulled their children closer. Not hostile yet. Just uncertain. Recognition spreading like ripples in water. That's him. That's Solar Saint. Why is he here? Cameras turned. News crews who'd been filming B-roll suddenly had A-roll. Phones came out. 200 of them. 500. Recording. Homelander stepped forward from his position near the stage. His smile never wavered. His voice projected for the crowd carried performative concern. "Hey there, friend. This is a private event. Family-focused. Maybe we should talk somewhere else." Escanor stopped in the center of the plaza. 20 feet from Homelander. 30 feet from the nearest civilians. Far enough that whatever happened wouldn't immediately catch bystanders. Close enough that every camera had a clear shot. "No," Escanor said. The crowd murmured. Parents pulled children further back. Security moved in hands on weapons they hoped they wouldn't need. Homelander's smile tightened. I'm trying to be reasonable here. We can work this out. You're clearly going through something. Vought offers counseling services. You're lying. Excuse me. You're lying. Escanor's voice carried without shouting. Clear. Certain. This event. Your concern. The narrative you're building. All of it. Lies designed to make people trust the system that exploits them. Homelander's smile vanished. For just a second, the mask cracked. Then it returned, but different now. Colder. Okay. You want to do this here in front of families, children that tells everyone exactly who you are. It tells them I won't be controlled. No. Homelander took a step forward. It tells them you're dangerous. He moved. Superhuman speed. Closed the distance in under a second. Grabbed Escanor by the throat. Lifted him off the ground. The crowd gasped. Cameras captured everything. You could have walked away. Homelander said quietly, just for Escanor. Could have taken the deal. Could have been rich and famous and loved. His grip tightened. Now you're just another cautionary tale. Escanor's hands came up, grabbed Homelander's wrist. The sun was higher now, stronger. Heat built in his chest, his arms, his core. He squeezed. Homelander's eyes widened, just slightly. His grip loosened, not voluntarily, because the pressure on his wrist was exceeding what he'd expected. Escanor pulled Homelander's hand away from his throat, bent the wrist back. Not breaking it. Not yet. Just applying pressure that made it clear he could. Who decided that? Escanor asked. He released Homelander's wrist, pushed him back. 3 feet. 5. Homelander stumbled, caught himself face flushing with humiliation and rage. The cameras caught all of it. A-Train blurred in from the left. Supersonic speed, aimed a punch at Escanor's head. Connected. Should have sent him flying. Should have ended it. Escanor turned his head with the impact. Absorbed it. Grabbed A-Train's arm mid-follow-through. The speedster's momentum carried him forward, but Escanor held firm. Anchor point. Physics insisted. Something had to give. A-Train's shoulder dislocated with a wet pop. He screamed. Escanor let go. A-Train hit the ground, cradling his arm. Black Noir came in silent. Twin blades. Professional. Targeted the joints, the soft spots, the places where anatomy mattered more than durability. Escanor didn't dodge. Let the first blade connect. It skittered across his skin like metal on stone. Left a scratch. Nothing more. He caught the second blade with his hand. Felt it cut into his palm. Shallow. Already healing. The sun was burning through damage faster than it could accumulate. He pulled the blade away. Snapped it. Dropped the pieces. Black Noir backed up. Reassessed. Pulled out different weapons. The Deep charged from the water feature because someone had told him to, and he didn't know what else to do. Wet. Confident in close quarters, completely outmatched. Escanor sidestepped. Let the momentum carry the Deep past him. Grabbed the back of his uniform, threw him into the bounce house. The inflatable collapsed. Children's screams, parents running. The chaos Vought wanted just not directed the way they'd planned. Homelander rose into the air, eyes glowing full crimson now. Enough, he fired. Heat vision, twin beams of concentrated thermal energy, aimed center mass, lethal force, the kind he claimed he never used on humans. The beams hit Escanor's chest. For a second there was light, heat, energy. Then it scattered, refracted. The sunlight in Escanor's body meeting external heat and treating it like fuel instead of weapon. The beams bent away, hit the pavement, melted asphalt into glass. The cameras captured that too. Homelander landed, stared. His go-to power, the thing that made him apex predator, had just failed. On camera, in front of everyone. "That's not possible," he said. "Who decided that?" Escanor repeated. On the edge of the plaza, Huey recorded everything. His phone was streaming to 3 platforms simultaneously. 40,000 viewers, 60,000. The numbers climbed as algorithms recognized breaking content. In a news van, a producer shouted into his headset, "Keep rolling. Whatever you do, keep rolling." At Vought Tower, Sister Sage watched 7 different feeds simultaneously. Her expression didn't change, but her fingers moved faster, opening contingencies, activating protocols. She pulled up the backup drone system. Vaught's private fleet, the ones they used when regular news coverage wasn't cooperative enough. The drones lifted off from the van. 6 of them circled above the plaza. Different angles, better quality, all feeding directly to Vaught's servers where editors could cut, adjust, contextualize. Sage opened the command interface, prepared to switch the feeds, make the independent streams lose priority in the algorithms, bury them under official coverage. Then one drone sparked, another, 3 more. All 6 fell from the sky. Sage pulled up diagnostics. Thermal interference. The heat Escanor was generating, not actively, just as byproduct of his current state, was overwhelming the drone circuits. They'd overheated before they could even establish stable position. "Recommend switch to ground cameras only," someone said through her earpiece. "Negative." Sage was already typing. "Deploy secondary drones, hardened models, thermal shielding. They're not on site. 40 minutes minimum." Sage looked at the timer. 10:27. 33 minutes to noon. Escanor's power output was climbing, not linearly, exponentially. The live streams from phones, from news cameras, from anything not directly over his head, continued broadcasting. No way to stop them short of a total electromagnetic pulse that would affect everything, including Vaught's own equipment. She made a decision. "Accelerate containment. Authorization code Sigma 7. In the plaza, Homelander received the command. His jaw tightened. Sigma 7. The code that meant collateral damage was acceptable. That meant winning mattered more than optics. He looked at the civilians still in the plaza. Most had pulled back, but not all. Some were frozen. Some were recording. Some were just trying to protect their children and find an exit. "Clear the area," Homelander announced. His voice, amplified, carried authority and warning. "Everyone out, now." People ran. Volunteers helped. Security directed traffic. But it took time. Bodies moving through choke points, parents carrying children, elderly needing assistance. Escanor watched, waited, made no move to stop the evacuation or pursue Homelander. Just stood in the center of the plaza while the sun climbed higher and the temperature of the air around him made the camera feeds waver like desert mirages. When the last civilian cleared the barriers, Homelander's expression changed. The performative hero mask fell away. What remained was something colder, more honest. "You should have run when you had the chance." He moved again. Faster this time. Serious. Grabbed Escanor, lifted him, shot straight up. 500 feet. 1,000. 2,000. High enough that falling would matter even to someone durable. He released. Escanor fell. Wind resistance. Terminal velocity. The ground approaching fast. He hit the plaza. The impact cratered concrete. Spiderweb cracks radiated 30 feet. Dust and debris obscured the impact point. The cameras focused. Zoom lenses, digital enhancement, waiting to see if he'd get up. The dust cleared. Escanor stood, concrete dust on his clothes, scratch on his cheek already healing. He looked up at Homelander. Then he smiled. Not cruel, not mocking, just genuine. The expression of someone who'd just confirmed a hypothesis. "You can't hurt me," Escanor said. "Not under the sun, not when it matters." Homelander dove. Supersonic. Aimed both fists at Escanor's head. Connected with force that should have liquefied bone. Escanor caught both fists, held them, pushed back. For the first time in Homelander's life, someone matched his strength, then exceeded it. Escanor pushed harder. Homelander's feet slid back. 6 inches, a foot, 2 feet. His boots carved lines in the concrete. "I don't fight to dominate," Escanor said. His voice was quiet, but somehow everyone watching heard it. "I fight to illuminate. To show people what you really are when someone says no." He released Homelander's fists, stepped back. Homelander stood there, face red, breathing hard, not from exertion, from humiliation. Behind the barriers, phones captured everything. The streams reached 500,000 concurrent viewers. News channels were cutting to live coverage. Social media was erupting. The algorithms Vought had spent billions perfecting were doing exactly what they were designed to do, promoting the most engaging content. And right now, nothing was more engaging than watching Homelander, America's greatest hero, get pushed back by someone who'd told the truth. Sage watched from the war room. She pulled up the sentiment analysis. It was shifting. Not dramatically, not conclusively, but shifting. Enough to matter. She opened a secure channel. "Deploy Protocol 8, authorization code Omega Black." The response came immediately. "Confirmed. Asset is mobile, ETA 12 minutes. On the plaza, Homelander floated back up. His eyes glowed, his fists clenched. Everything about his body language screamed rage, barely contained. "You think you've won," he said. "You think showing off in front of cameras means anything they'll forget. They always do. Tomorrow there'll be some new crisis, some new distraction, and this will be ancient history. Maybe," Escanor acknowledged. "But today, right now, they saw. That's all I need." Homelander opened his mouth to respond, then stopped. His expression changed. Confusion, then understanding. Then something approaching fear. He'd felt something, a shift, a presence, something coming fast. Protocol 8 had arrived, 12 blocks away, moving at speeds that required special permits and clearance. Soldier Boy was being deployed from a Vought transport. The asset they'd kept in reserve. The one they'd sworn they'd never use again, unless absolutely necessary. Sage had decided it was necessary. Escanor felt it too. Not the specific threat, just the sense that something was coming, something designed to end him. He looked at the sun, 10:53, 7 minutes to noon, almost there. The sound came first. Not an engine, not footsteps, just displacement. Air being pushed aside by something that shouldn't move as fast as it was moving. Then, the impact. Soldier Boy landed at the plaza's edge. No theatrics, no announcement, just arrival. He wore the suit from another era, updated with modern materials, but keeping the aesthetic. Red, white, blue. Shield on his back. Face harder than the propaganda posters ever showed. Escanor turned, measured the distance, 40 feet. Close enough to engage, far enough to assess. "Stand down," Soldier Boy said. His voice carried the flat authority of someone who'd stopped asking permission decades ago. "You're coming in, voluntarily or otherwise. I'm not going anywhere with Vought." Wasn't a request. Soldier Boy moved. Not as fast as A-Train, not as strong as Homelander, but experienced, trained. No wasted motion. He crossed the distance in 3 seconds, shield already swinging. Escanor blocked with his forearm. The impact rang like a bell. Metal on enhanced bone. The shield rebounded. Soldier Boy adjusted mid-swing, came in with a follow-up punch aimed at the ribs. Connected. Escanor slid back 2 feet, felt the impact. Not painful yet, but registering. This was different from the 7. This was someone who'd been fighting since before most of them were born. Soldier Boy pressed the advantage. Shield bash, elbow, knee. Combinations that came from muscle memory and decades of practical application. He wasn't trying to humiliate, just neutralize. Escanor deflected, countered. The sun was almost at its peak. He could feel it. Every second made him faster, stronger, more certain. But Soldier Boy was adapting too, finding rhythms, testing responses. They traded blows across the plaza. Each impact cracked concrete, sent debris flying. The few journalists who'd stayed behind barriers now crouched lower, protecting equipment, protecting themselves. Huey had moved to a building across the street. 4th floor window. Phone still streaming. 100,000 viewers now. More every minute. In the war room, Sage watched the feed. Checked biometrics. Both combatants were operating at levels that exceeded standard projections. But Escanor's curve was still climbing. Soldier Boy's was flat. Consistent. The same power output he'd had for 40 years. "It's not working," someone said behind her. "It's working exactly as designed." Sage pulled up another file. Protocol 8 wasn't meant to defeat him. It was meant to buy time. For what? She didn't answer. Just typed commands into her tablet. On the plaza, Soldier Boy grabbed Escanor's arm, twisted, tried to force him down. Escanor resisted. They locked, strength against strength, neither giving ground. Then Soldier Boy's chest started to glow, not his eyes, his chest, where Vaught's experiments had embedded something that never should have been put inside a human body, where the radiation they'd used to enhance him had left a permanent mark. "Get clear," Soldier Boy said. Not to Escanor, to anyone listening. "Get clear now." Homelander, watching from above, understood first. He flew higher, fast. The remaining members of the 7, who could move under their own power, scattered. A-Train, still cradling his dislocated shoulder, stumbled toward the barriers. Black Noir ran. The Deep was already gone. Escanor felt the energy building, recognized it as something similar to his own solar absorption, but twisted, corrupted. Power that didn't come from nature but from laboratories that treated the human body as a testing ground. He tried to pull away. Soldier Boy held firm. "This is gonna hurt," Soldier Boy said. "Both of us." The blast erupted outward, not directed, just released. Radiation and force in a sphere that expanded at the speed of physics allowing. It caught Escanor, center mass. Threw him back. 40 feet. 60. He hit a tent support. The structure collapsed. Canvas and metal and promotional materials burying him. The blast kept going. Hit the barriers. Knocked journalists flat. Shattered windows in buildings 3 blocks away. Car alarms triggered in a cascading wave of mechanical screaming. And the people, the ones who hadn't evacuated, the volunteers who'd stayed to help, the homeless man who'd been sleeping under a bench, the security guard who'd been checking his phone instead of running. The blast caught them too. When the light faded, the plaza was silent except for groaning metal and distant sirens. Smoke hung in the air. Not from fire, from energy discharge ionizing oxygen into ozone. Soldier Boy stood at the blast center, breathing hard. The glow in his chest was fading. He'd used it. The thing Vought had always warned him not to use in populated areas unless absolutely necessary. They decided it was necessary. Escanor pulled himself from the collapsed tent. Canvas fell away. Metal scaffolding clattered. He stood, slower than before. The blast had done something, not permanent damage, but disruption. His connection to the sun had been interrupted, not severed, just static, like trying to hear through interference. He looked around, saw the fallen, the injured, the ones who'd been too close to someone else's war. A woman lay 20 feet away. Volunteer vest, early 30s, unconscious, bleeding from her ears, blast trauma. Beyond her, the security guard, not moving at all. Further back, screaming. A child calling for a parent calling for a child. Escanor's hands started shaking. Not from weakness, from something else. The weight of consequence. The cost of standing in the light when others stood in the shadow. It cast. "This is on you," Homelander said. He'd descended, stood at the edge of the blast radius. "You came here. You started this. All of this." Escanor looked at him, then at Soldier Boy, then at the casualties scattered across concrete that had been safe 30 seconds ago. Butcher's voice came through. He'd moved to ground level, was crouched behind a barrier with both of them armed now. "You can still finish it. Homelander's right there, vulnerable. End him." In Escanor's position, with the sun still climbing toward noon, he could do it. Cross the distance. Strike before Homelander could react. One clean hit while the man was distracted by his victory lap. It would be easy, justified. The world would be better for it. But the woman in the volunteer vest would still be bleeding. The security guard would still be dead. The child would still be screaming. And Vought would cut the footage to show exactly what they wanted. Escanor killing Homelander. Context erased. Narrative confirmed. The dangerous radical who forced them to use extreme measures proved right by his own violence. "No," Escanor said. Butcher's voice came through again, sharper. "What? No." Escanor walked toward the injured woman, knelt beside her, checked her pulse. Still alive. Unconscious but breathing. "What the fuck are you doing?" Butcher's voice carried disbelief and fury. "He's right there. I'm saving people." Escanor lifted the woman carefully, carried her toward the medical personnel who were finally moving in. Handed her off to an EMT who looked terrified and grateful. He turned back, walked to the next casualty. The homeless man. Older, disoriented, bleeding from a head wound. Escanor helped him up, guided him toward the paramedics. Homelander watched. His expression cycled through confusion, then understanding, then something calculating. "Cameras are still rolling," he said quietly just to Escanor. "They're seeing this. You helping, me watching. Who do you think they'll remember as the hero? I don't care who they remember." Escanor moved to the next person. A teenage volunteer, leg broken, crying. He picked her up gently. "I care what actually happened." Soldier Boy straightened from where he'd been catching his breath. Looked at the casualties. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. Not guilt. Soldiers from his era didn't do guilt, but recognition. He'd seen this before. Collateral. Acceptable losses. The math of war. "Orders are to contain you," he said. "Then contain me." Escanor set the teenager down next to the ambulance. "After I've moved everyone clear." For 5 seconds, Soldier Boy said nothing. Then he walked to the security guard, the one who wasn't moving. Checked for pulse. Found none. His jaw tightened. He picked up the body, carried it away from the blast zone with the mechanical care of someone who'd done this too many times. Homelander's expression twisted. "What are you doing?" Soldier Boy didn't answer. Just kept moving bodies. Living and dead. Creating distance between blast radius and treatment area. In the war room, Sage watched the feeds. All of them. News cameras, phones, the remaining Vought equipment that was still functional. Every angle showed the same thing. Escanor saving people. Soldier Boy helping despite orders. Homelander standing still, unsure how to proceed when the narrative had slipped away from him. She ran the sentiment analysis. It was cascading, not slowly, fast. Comments flooding in faster than algorithms could process. The split was narrowing. 40-60, 45-55, approaching 50-50. Someone behind her spoke. "Should we cut the feeds?" "No." Sage set her tablet down. If we cut them now, it confirms we're hiding something. The only play is to let it run and control the aftermath. We've lost containment. We've lost this battle. Sage pulled up files, contingency plans, damage control protocols. But the war isn't over. People have short memories. Tomorrow we'll have new stories, new heroes, new villains. This will be a footnote. But even as she said it, she was watching the numbers. The way they kept shifting. The way the narrative she'd built so carefully was leaking away like water through cracked concrete. On the plaza, Escanor carried the last injured person to the medics. A child, maybe 7, unconscious but stable. He handed him to a paramedic who took the boy with shaking hands. Then Escanor turned, looked at the sun, checked the position. 11:58, 2 minutes to noon. He walked back to the center of the plaza, stood in the blast crater Soldier Boy had created. The concrete was scorched. Radiation levels were elevated, would be for weeks. Soldier Boy approached from one side, Homelander from the other. Both wary now, both having seen what happened when Escanor chose you people over vengeance. "This isn't finished," Homelander said. "No," Escanor agreed. "It's not." The sun reached its apex. Noon, perfect alignment, peak output. Heat radiated from Escanor, invisible waves. The air around him shimmered. Concrete beneath his feet began to crack from thermal stress. The interference from Soldier Boy's blast burned away like fog in sunlight. He was at maximum now. The one. The state where his power had no ceiling because the sun gave everything it had, and he received it all. "But it's not going to end the way you want it either," Escanor continued. His voice was calm, certain, final. "Because I'm not going to kill him. I'm not going to become the monster you need me to be to justify what you've done." "Then what?" Homelander demanded. "You just walk away. Hope that being moral means anything." "No." Escanor looked directly at the cameras, all of them. Phone cameras, news cameras, the ones streaming to millions of people watching this moment. "I make them choose. Everyone watching. Everyone who saw what happened here. They can believe your version, the edited footage, the narrative. Or they can believe what they witnessed, what you couldn't control." He turned, walked toward the plaza exit. Not running, not flying, just walking. "Stop him," Homelander ordered. Soldier Boy didn't move. "I said stop him." "I heard you." Soldier Boy's voice was flat. "Answer's no." Homelander stared. "You're refusing a direct order." "I'm refusing to chase down a guy who just spent 20 minutes saving people I helped hurt." Soldier Boy looked at the blast crater. The scorch marks. The evidence of what Protocol 8 actually meant. "You want him stopped, you stop him." Homelander rose into the air, started forward, then stopped. Because every camera was still on him. Every phone was still recording. And if he attacked now, after everything people had just watched, the optics would be catastrophic. He landed, forced his smile back into place. "This isn't over," he called after Escanor. Escanor didn't turn around, just kept walking, out of the plaza, down the street, into the city where Vought's control was absolute, but their cameras couldn't follow everywhere. The sun had reached its peak. Soon it would start descending, and with it, his power would begin to fade. But that was later. Right now, in this moment, he'd done what he came to do. He'd made them see. Whether they'd remember was up to them. The data went live at 4:17 in the afternoon, not through official channels, through the cracks. Starlight had spent 6 hours compiling it. Security footage from Vought's internal servers, emails between executives discussing Project Sunshine, lab reports showing they knew the kill switch would fail under real sunlight, communications logs proving they'd moved up the timeline to catch Escanor before he reached full strength. The memo authorizing Protocol 8 with full knowledge of civilian casualties. She uploaded it to 12 different platforms simultaneously. Free hosting sites, encrypted servers, places that would take hours for Vaught's legal team to even identify, let alone suppress. By 4:30, it had been downloaded 40,000 times. By 5, 200,000. People were sharing it faster than Vaught could issue takedown notices. In the war room, Sage watched the spread. Exponential, viral. The exact mechanism she'd spent years perfecting now working against her. "Can we stop it?" someone asked. "No." Sage closed the tracking window. "We can only respond to it." She pulled up the counter-narrative package. Pre-written press releases. Expert testimonials ready to go. Fact-checkers on standby to dispute specific claims. Media allies prepared to question the source, the timing, the motivation. "Deploy Package 7, she ordered. "Full spectrum, every outlet we control. Frame it as a disgruntled employee with an agenda. Focus on the fact that she violated her NDA and stole proprietary data. What about the content? We don't deny the content. We question the context." Sage pulled up a sample response. "Yes, we conducted experiments. Yes, there were risks. But everything was done to protect the public from an unstable asset. The casualties today prove we were right to be concerned." It was elegant. Using the outcome to justify the conspiracy. Making the evidence of their manipulation into proof they'd been responsible all along. She sent the package. Within 20 minutes, talking heads on 3 major networks were using the same talking points. Blogs picked it up. Social media accounts with 6-figure followings began sharing the Vaught perspective. The narrative split. Not cleanly, messily. Half the country saw a cover-up exposed. The other half saw a security threat that had been handled appropriately. The middle was confused, angry, or simply exhausted by another controversy they couldn't fully parse. By 6 o'clock, the story was trending. By 7, it had been eclipsed by a celebrity divorce and a political scandal. By 8, it was sliding down the feed, replaced by whatever was newer, shinier, more immediately engaging. The system had absorbed the blow, adapted, survived. In a hotel room 12 miles from the plaza, Escanor sat on the edge of the bed. The sun had set an hour ago. He felt it. The drain, the slow return to uncertainty. His hands were shaking again. The television was on. News coverage. A panel discussing the events. 3 people arguing over whether he was a hero or a threat. One of them was a Vaught spokesperson. Very calm, very reasonable. Explaining how tragic it was that casualties had occurred, but also how necessary the response had been. The host nodded along. Asked softball questions. Let the spokesperson finish sentences without interruption. Escanor turned it off. A knock, 3 taps, pause, 2 more. He opened the door. Huey entered carrying takeout that smelled like MSG and desperation. "Wasn't sure you'd still be here." "Where else would I go?" Huey set the food on the small table. "Anywhere. You walked away. You could keep walking." "I could?" Escanor sat back on the bed. "I won't." "Why not?" "Because this isn't finished." Huey pulled out containers. Fried rice. Something that was supposed to be chicken. "The data's out there. People saw what happened. That's what you wanted, right? To show them the truth." "Yes, and half of them don't believe it. The other half will forget by next week." Huey opened his container. "So, what was the point?" Escanor was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice carrying the exhaustion that daylight burned away. "The point wasn't to win. It was to show them they have a choice. For most of their lives, people are told the choice has already been made. By systems too big to fight. By people too powerful to question. They learn to accept it. To survive within it. And you think one day changed that? No." Escanor looked at the darkened television. but it showed them the machinery, the way it works, the way it protects itself. Some of them will forget. Most of them will. But some won't. And those are the ones who might choose differently next time. Huey ate in silence for a minute, then asked the question he'd been avoiding. What about Butcher? What about him? He's pissed. Says you wasted the opportunity. Says Homelander's still walking around because you decided to play hero instead of doing what needed to be done. He's not wrong. So you regret it? No. Escanor met Huey's eyes. Killing Homelander wouldn't have changed anything. They would have made him a martyr. Used his death to justify even worse measures. The system doesn't need him. It just uses him. If he died tomorrow, they'd find someone else. Then what's the solution? I don't know. Escanor's shoulders sagged. Maybe there isn't one. Maybe the best we can do is make the system work harder to maintain its lies. Make it more expensive, more obvious, until enough people get tired of paying the cost. Huey set his food down. That's pretty bleak. Yes. But you're staying anyway. Yes. Why? Escanor looked at the window. Through it, the city lights. Millions of people who hadn't been at the plaza. Who'd only seen the coverage. Who were deciding right now what to believe. Because someone has to, he said finally. Even if it doesn't work. Even if they forget tomorrow. Someone has to stand in the light and refuse to move. Another knock. Different pattern. Huey tensed. Escanor opened the door. Starlight stood there, hood up, sunglasses on despite the darkness. She looked exhausted and wired and ready to bolt at any second. I can't stay long, she said. They know it was me. They're deciding whether to prosecute or bury it. Thank you, Escanor said. She shook her head. Don't. The data's out there, but it's not changing anything. Not really. Just giving people ammunition for arguments they were already having. That's still something. Is it? She pulled out her phone, showed him the headlines. Half condemned Vought, half defended them. The split was almost perfectly even. We gave them evidence, and they just picked the version that confirmed what they already believed. So what did we actually accomplish? Escanor didn't answer immediately. Then he said, we gave them a choice. Whether they take it or not is up to them. Starlight laughed. Bitter. Tired. You really believe that matters and I have to? She looked at him. This man who'd walked into Vaught's trap voluntarily. Who'd chosen rescue over revenge. Who was standing here weak and vulnerable because the sun had abandoned him for the night. They're going to come after you, she said. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but eventually. And when they do, they'll do it smart, quiet, in a way that doesn't make the news. I know. And you're staying anyway? Yes. She nodded slowly. Then I guess we're both idiots. She checked her phone. I have to go. They're tracking my location data. I've got maybe 5 more minutes before they notice the gap. She turned to leave. Stopped. For what it's worth, I'm glad you didn't kill him. Not because he doesn't deserve it, but because you were right. It wouldn't have changed anything. She left. Huey locked the door behind her. So what now? Now we wait. Escanor sat back down. Tomorrow the sun rises. I'll be strong again. And the day after that. And the day after that. Until Vought makes their next move. And then I'll be there. In the light. Refusing to be what they need me to be. Huey picked up his food. That's not much of a plan. No, Escanor agreed. But it's the one I have. They ate in silence. The television stayed off. Outside the city continued its night routine. Traffic, sirens. The ordinary chaos of millions of people living their lives without knowledge that something had shifted. Not dramatically, not conclusively, but shifted. At Vought Tower, Sister Sage reviewed the final reports. Casualty count, Media penetration, sentiment analysis, legal exposure, stock price impact. The damage was contained, not eliminated. Contained. They'd taken a hit, bad press, internal leaks. A hero who'd walked away instead of playing his role. But the system was intact. The machinery still functioned. Tomorrow there would be new stories, new heroes, new crises to manage and narratives to shape. She opened a new file, labeled it Solar Saint, Long-Term Containment. Inside, she began outlining options. Legal harassment, financial pressure, social isolation, character assassination through third-party sources. Nothing direct, nothing that could be traced back. Just a steady campaign to make his existence difficult enough that eventually he'd either break or become irrelevant. It would take time, resources, patience. She had all three. She saved the file, sent it to the appropriate people. Then she went home. Across the city, in apartments and houses and hotels, people were going to sleep with the events of the day filtering through their consciousness. Some believed Vought. Some believed Escanor. Most were somewhere in between, trying to reconcile what they'd seen with what they'd been told. By morning, a significant percentage would have moved on. New notifications, new controversies, new reasons to be outraged or entertained or distracted. That was how it always worked. That was how the system survived. But in a few minds, in the ones that couldn't quite let it go, something remained. A question. A doubt. A crack in the narrative that let light through. Not enough to bring down the machinery. Not yet. Maybe not ever, but enough to matter. In the hotel room, Escanor lay back on the bed, stared at the ceiling, counted water stains. 18, 19, including the new one near the corner that might have been there before, and he'd just missed it. Through the thin walls, someone was arguing on a phone. Elsewhere, a television played a late-night show. Laughter. Applause. The sounds of a world that kept turning regardless of whether its heroes were heroic or its systems were broken. He closed his eyes, felt the exhaustion of nighttime pulling him under. Dawn was 8 hours away. The sun would rise. It always did. And when it did, he'd be there, standing in the light, refusing to be bought, controlled, or made into something he wasn't, whether anyone was watching or not, whether it mattered or not, because that was the only choice he could live with. Outside, the city continued. Inside the machinery, the wheels kept turning. And somewhere between those two facts in the gap, between what people were told and what they'd seen, something had changed. Small, imperfect, insufficient, but real. And in a world built on carefully constructed lies, real was enough to be dangerous. The light would come again. It always did.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to turn on notification so you won't miss our future video. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.